This is Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. Hello, everyone. This is Barbara Voukaitis, host of Get Inspired with Dr. Barb, podcast on education, innovation education. Today, I have an absolutely fabulous guest. It almost didn't happen today. We went through some challenges related to some other situations. Mondays usually can become hectic. Sometimes yes, sometimes not. And I can see my guest, Kirsten, is shaking her head a little bit. So it's just not in the teaching world, but in any other profession too. Mondays can be kind of interesting. And also, my university has been on a spring break. So after spring break, Monday is even more interesting, usually after breaks like that.
Hard to
Exactly.
get back into it.
What did you say, Kirsten?
I said it's hard to get back into it.
Yeah, nobody wants to, but we have to.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would like to welcome you, first of all, wonderful audience, and on another show of mine, and would like to welcome incredible guest today, Kirsten Kinsella. Welcome, Kirsten, on my show. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad we found each other. It's exciting to be able to talk about this work.
Exactly. And I am so happy too. And we can also let our audience how we found each other, because people probably want to know, like, how do these people found each other? Where do you find cool people, right? That kind of like have a similar vibe, are interested in doing similar things, I think. And I would like to introduce Kirsten by saying some things about her. I just love this. So Kirsten is a former teacher and school administrator in the New York City public school system. So she has a great idea of what it looks like from the perspective of the teacher and administrator. And this is really so cool when there is someone with multiple perspectives, not just one. I think this is really very valuable. And also, she's a certified dog trainer and animal assisted intervention specialist. So there are so many roles already in that one sentence that I just mentioned. And she is the director of New York City Public Schools Comfort Dog Animal Assisted Intervention Program. I know it's a long name, but I think it tells you right away what it is, right? And what it does. So it's like a New York City public school system having its own personal animal therapy program, intervention program, and that's absolutely amazing. But I love this. Kirsten's work sits at the intersection of education, behavior, and relationship-based learning through intentionally designed, goal-driven programs. Kirsten integrates dogs into schools in a way that goes far beyond comfort or petting, creating structured learning environments where children begin to understand themselves through their interaction with the dog. This is something I've seen myself. If you're a little bit more intentional about it, then it does go beyond petting and just, I mean, this situation alone just does a lot for children, but you can do so much more if you are more intentional as far as these activities go. At the core of her work is the belief that behavior is communication. I totally agree with this. The same with neurodivergent children. If they don't act well, something out of their normal behavior, there is a reason for that. They communicate something. It really is so important to understand that. So through working with dogs, students develop emotional regulation, self-awareness, and deeper understanding of how their action impact others. Boy, I mean, if they can understand that, then we really can reach to them with in terms of learning. I mean, if they struggle and suffer in the educational settings, how do we think they're going to learn? I mean, that's such a big issue, right, in the current educational system, really. So they learn how to build relationships, not just with the dog, but with themselves and the people around them. That's what we want to achieve. And Kristen works directly with students alongside her own dog, while also leading and mentoring handler teams and developing programs across schools, of course. An essential focus of her work is maintaining the ethics of animal-assisted intervention, educating handlers and school communities on how to work with dogs in a way that protects their well-being, because that is very important. If they don't want to participate in something, we really should not include them. Honors their communication. Yeah, they communicate too, of course, and ensures they are not only safe, but able to enjoy the work they are being asked to do. Exactly. And I love this too. This approach is rooted in balance, respect, and responsibility, creating environments where both the child and the dog feel safe, understood, and successful. And in addition to Kirsten's work in schools, she is a certified yoga teacher and part of counseling support team in New York City schools, bringing trauma-informed nervous system-based lens to everything she does. And of course, her work is not just about dogs, but it's also about creating space where learning, connection, and self-awareness happen in real time. Kirsten, if everybody could understand that, including teachers, administrators, and maybe eventually those who like make those decisions about changes in schools and reforms, I think we would be in a different place.
Yeah.
Welcome on my show, and I wonder what do you say about that?
Well, I think that that is what's so cool about the work that I do with the dogs because they show up as who they are. They communicate what they feel, right? It's such true, honest feedback. And in doing this work, it allows the children or the adults or whoever we're working with to really see that. And there's no denying it. So it's like the proof is right there. I always say, I don't need to necessarily plan anything. It's watch the magic happen because I'm just the facilitator. It's the kids and the dogs and the interactions that they're happening. And you can't deny it. You know, there's no, yes, there's data behind it and we can talk
Right.
numbers, but it's just, it's right there and it's happening in the moment. And I just agree with what you're saying. If we could get everybody to understand that, then I think the kids in the schools would be in a much better place. We focus so hard on academics, right, and rigor and test scores. And if the children are not in a place where they can think and learn and they're emotionally regulated and they feel safe, and that's my big thing, especially with the dogs as well. Like, I need to create a very safe environment for all of this to be able to work. But also, that's how we think, that's how we learn, that's how we process. We don't process when we're in a flight or fight response, we don't process when we're stressed out. And so many of these kids and adults in the school system that they're stressed. And I'm like, we have this thing, right? And it works. It's automatic, instantaneous as soon as the kids and the dogs come into this space together. And I just love it. So I would love for everybody to be able to have this.
I absolutely love what you said, and also I totally agree with this. How much data do we need, and from what kinds of studies to really show the effect of this intervention, practice, whatever you call it, for the systems to accept it? I mean, we have to this day, as someone who works in education, we had some incredible large scale, whatever experimental studies. And it's not that like all of these practices proven in these large studies made it to these schools. So is this really about showing some giant, size effects to make this work? I think that the problems might be someplace else in the educational system and structures that are telling us this needs to be changed in education. This is the next new thing. This is what we should focus on. So I don't think this is only about the lack of large scale types of, I think, research. What do you think is the problem in education, Kirsten, that kind of like gives this obstacle for this practice to make it to schools just more, just, I don't know, often, or there are some schools that never
Yeah.
saw therapy animals, right? What is the problem?
I don't know that I look at it necessarily as a problem. I think to your point, you talk numbers and numbers are just, 75% of students that are in an animal assisted intervention program, blah, 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 right? And that's
Yeah,
meaningful, and you need to know that, right? And I'm not saying that you don't.
right.
But I think it's just a lack of understanding. on something that's hard to create a picture around. I struggle, and this is what I live it, I breathe it, I promote it. This is all that I do. And I advocate for it. But I myself even struggle sometimes putting into words what I'm doing. And I also often will say like, just come in, just come in here, right? Come see the kids and the dogs and see us
Yeah.
working together because that's what people need to see, and to be able to truly understand what actually is happening and the extent of what we're actually doing. Because if I just explain it, I don't think that you're seeing it. It's those real time moments where you see things shift. You can see the shift in the dog, you can see the shift in the child when it comes to communication and confidence and problem solving and watching their relationship together. Like, that's one of my favorite things to see, because there's this idea sometimes, and this might go against the grain of what people think, but that dogs and kids just should love each other and dogs should just love the people that they're surrounded by. And that's not how relationships work, right? Every person that we meet, every person that we encounter, we don't automatically feel love for and are in each other's spaces and have this like deep relationship,
Hmm.
because dogs are who they are, and they do have this magic, right? They have this way that we connect with dogs that we don't have in other spaces, and I think that that's why it works. But I think back to what you were talking about before, intentionality on how you navigate that and really truly building a relationship, and that it's not just connection, it's about establishing boundaries, having respect for each other, having two people, not two people, a dog and a child be vulnerable with each other. And you do see that in the beginning of them meeting, there's this excitement on both sides, right? From the dog and the child of like, I'm wagging like a dog would, right? You know, who is this? I'm interested.
Yeah.
But there's a vulnerability behind this because you don't know each other. There's no common ground. There's nothing to go off of in saying like, what is this going to look like? Do I move? Do you move? Right? What does our space look like? And working through that vulnerability and then starting to learn how to communicate when you're not even speaking the same language. You know, and that part's really cool too, because I feel as humans, we like to talk at things and we like to say a lot, but we don't just stop and pause and kind of observe what's happening, because whether it be a dog or a person, there's a lot being communicated and a lot of it silent. But for me, teaching the kids about this beforehand and watching them see it play out, and kind of it's like a dance they do, you know, to try and figure out like where's our level of comfort and then how do we build on that. And then most importantly, the trust. Right? I never let a kid and a dog just go into a space and hey, how are you? And hugs, and you know, dogs don't like hugs. People like giving dogs hugs. But watching that trust happen, and I think that's so important because most of what we do in our lives comes back to trust in any sort of relationship, whether it be with your parents, with
Hmm.
your family members, with coworkers. Everything we have to do kind of has to go back to that, and feeling safe and heard and understood, right? And having your boundaries respected. And then once you're there, that's when everything just works. So really just seeing that play out with the kids and the dogs, I think is just so amazing. And you can see it in real time. So that was a long-winded answer to your question, but I think having all of this misinformation put out, you and I having this conversation, having school administrators look and see the program. You know, I invite the administrators to come in all the time, and they're like, oh, wow, this is amazing. And it's not
I
because of
love
me, it's because
this.
of what happens.
This is a great idea. Well,
Yeah,
you
I think
don't
it's
know
awareness.
about it, you're not sure as an administrator. Come in, we invite you. I think that that could really start something different, because how else are they supposed to know, right? And also another thing, I think Kirsten is someone who works in a teacher preparation program. That's where I work. When I looked around, I was like, wait a minute, why is it that I am talking about this to my future teachers, students, right? Just because I happen to be therapy dog handler, working as a therapy dog team member, right? Whatever you call it, there's different terms. But normally, if somebody studies to be a teacher, they don't learn that at all. So there is something that I think there is a space for our sort of silo, so to speak, of therapy, dogs, uh, animal-assisted intervention, animal-assisted education, people for us to somehow collaborate with these universities who teach teachers. They don't know they don't have courses about that. That's not what they learn. They have some other basic things. And by the way, they take quite a few courses when you look around for
Yeah.
in 4-year program. How many courses they take? I mean, a lot, but they don't, do they learn what will help create safety for students? They don't,
Yeah, I think it's touched upon, right? And I think
not
that
much.
there's an idea of it, but I think there is so much to be said about understanding. I mean, for me, canine behavior, but then also
Yeah.
human behavior. And guess what? They go hand in hand. When I started studying dog training, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I know all of this because I've been teaching for years, right? It's the same ideologies, it's the same practices, but we just don't put them in the same box, and we don't think about them as intentionally sometimes, I think, and it needs to be looked at. I've done a lot of work recently on just like really digging deeper on both dogs and children on like what is the function of this behavior that we're seeing, right? We see a behavior and we try and put a band-aid or we try and fix the behavior itself, but the behavior is just what's coming out because there's something underneath. And if we don't look for what's underneath it, then that's where we're in a behavior loop, you know. And same for dogs, same exact thing. My dog's barking, right? People come to me as a dog trainer. I don't even go into the barking. I go back to structure,
Mhm.
management, routine, clear, consistent expectations. You have a child behavior, and I'm not comparing like children or dog are
Right.
definitely different, right? But it's all the same. And it's like you have to go backwards. And I think everything starts with consistency and clarity. And a lot of the times we think we're being clear and consistent, and we're not. And then thinking about how behavior makes you process different things and what it looks like. If we really did a deep dive into that, I think that these children would be set up for a lot more success.
I
And it's
agree.
just very
Yeah.
clear when I'm doing this work in particular that I'm like, this is what these kids need. And then we'll see it in the academics, right? If I'm doing this consistently and they're in this place and they find a safe place in which they can be unsure of the answer and work through it. And the beauty is they have a dog to be doing this with. I do mostly dog training as part of my program. The kids don't realize that I am also infusing academics and socio-emotional learning and all these pieces. They have no idea. They're coming, they're being dog trainers. But helping them navigate through that. I don't just come in and say, okay, here, tell the dog sit down, place, done,
Yeah.
right? We look at first establishing the relationship, learning about body language, consent. Consent is something that I am so big on, right? You don't just to get to go into a dog space and say hello because I said it was okay, right? You want to say hello to the dog needs to say it's okay. All of these pieces of the puzzle, teaching them antecedent, behavior, consequence, right? Because that applies to their life. Learning theories, reinforcement strategies, like I teach them all of that. And then we go into actually putting it into play. But within that, you have problem solving happening, sequencing.
I think that, I mean, I just totally agree. I mean, there's so much you can teach children without them knowing that they're actually learning, right? That is absolutely incredible, and that's really how they learn a lot. I think that this, I mean, there are of course other major problems why this practice is not in the schools yet, but also I think that if we think about schools, they have incredible teachers and they have incredible other experts, psychologists and counselors. And unfortunately, these experts do not always, they cannot always help the child who doesn't have the trust. And usually, if there is a problem with trust, is the problem with trust between children and adults, because adults often harm children. I mean, that's just how it is. And then I've just heard so many stories, and you probably yourself too, that the only situation that could help was the interaction with an animal, because there is a different level of trust between the child and an animal, and the animal not being the judge and all that. I mean, we've heard so many stories about children changing slowly their attitude and sort of like breaking the shell in the presence of the animal. It doesn't matter how many years of experience and how wonderful the teacher was or how incredible psychologist was, nothing worked, right?
Yeah, well, that's like a great point, and you just made me think, right? With like trauma, and trauma like gets thrown around sometimes, but trauma can be whatever it is, however that feels and shows up in your body, still makes it a traumatic if it's traumatic for you. And people don't think that way sometimes, but when you experience something like that, your body starts to recognize patterns in what something looks like or what something feels like. So to your point, it could just be I'm not trusting of adults, or I'm not trusting of people. And especially when you're having early trauma happen to a child, they don't even know that that's what they're experiencing, but there's this not sure insecurity, lack of confidence sometimes, and the vulnerability that shows up, and they don't know how to explain that in words, that you sometimes have with an adult. And it doesn't mean, and this adult can be wonderful, I'm
Yeah.
not saying
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
but that breakthrough, because there's this air of like, I'm not sure I feel so confident in this. And then when you put the dog in place, that predisposed feeling, that automatic response that your body has, right, doesn't happen. So we're eluding that. And then even having the opportunity to learn through or speak through the dog, I've seen so much of. I do a lot of Chip is my dog that I mainly work with, or Zola or Leia. I have a couple. But talking about like, how does Chip feel? Or creating these situations and letting the kids talk about how the dog feels is a very clear indicator of that's what the kid is feeling in the moment. And then being able to say, like, what coping strategies can we work on with Chip? Like, what can we do to make him feel better? And telling them exactly what you would be telling the child, but then doing it through the dog. And then I always say, we work through this, and then it becomes, and how does this apply to you? Right? How can we take the same thing that you just on your own came up with, the answer to how we can help the dog, and how can we apply that to you? So that's really what that socio-emotional learning component comes in when I am doing the work with the students, right? I show them something through the dog, have them understand it, have them work through it, and then we flip it around and say, what does this look like for you on repeat, kind of. And the beauty of it, as you were saying before, is that this can happen within a counseling setting, OT, PT, speech, remedial, math, or literacy. I haven't found anything that anybody's come to me and say, how do I make this work in this space? That I haven't been able to find a way to make it work, because I just go back to like, what are the goals and the needs of these students, no matter with or without the dog. And then let's come up with activities or things or tasks. We task train the dogs to do things where the dog is a part of this work, with the outcome still being supporting the child. And it just really works that way when you have that intentionality. And that's why I would love all the schools to have it, right? Or all these spaces to be able to have it, because it's just a beautiful thing. And then that relationship, and just having, if it's not one person, and we always want it to be people for the kids, right? If it's not one person, they at least have this dog, this one thing that they have where it's like, I trust you, I got you, I have your back, I see you, I feel you. And not everybody has that in their life. Unfortunately, we all want it. That's what we all strive for. That's what we all work towards. But to be able to create that for the students at such a young age, that they even know it's possible, right?
It's absolutely, absolutely amazing. And I wanted to ask you also if you could tell us a little bit about the origin of this program. Like when did it start? How was it founded, and how it works in a nutshell? Because like myself not knowing about it, do you invite only certain therapy dog teams from certain organizations? How does this work? It's just really
Sure.
something that we would like to know about.
So a different model than mostly what we see in schools. It started in 2016. I was not working for the program when it began, and it was piloted with 7 schools. And it's not therapy dog teams necessarily that are coming in for visits. the owners of the dogs work in the school and are the handler and certified therapy dog partner to the dog. So each school program looks completely different, falls under the same umbrella that I mapped out for you before, but depending on what the role of the owner of the dog is. If you're a counselor, most of your work is going to be counseling supports. If you are OT, speech, right, those specific students that you're mandated to be working with, those are the kids mostly that's working with the dog based on their own goals. If you're the assistant principal, whatever your role is, the only place that we don't have the dog, I personally, I know it works in other spaces, don't want the dogs in full classrooms with like the teacher being in charge of the dog and them being there for the whole entire day. I just think it's back to, I am like the UFT for the teachers, I'm the UFT for the dogs, right? They need to have breaks. They need to be in a space that that is predictable and controllable and reliable at all times. So while they can do visits, they're not there all day in the classroom. So if you're a classroom teacher, then you wouldn't be eligible to apply for the program. Does that make sense?
So I just wanted to make sure. So there are people. So you're not inviting therapy dog teams from outside, but the therapy dog handlers are people who already work in the school district. Let's say somebody is a counselor and they have their own certified dog and they work with the dog. And there might be even a teacher who also has a certified therapy dog, but it's not allowed for a teacher to have, let's say, her certified therapy dog to be with her at the same time when she is teaching,
Yeah, like the
right?
full classroom of students, right? So I don't want it to be one dog, one handler, and 25 students. And then that teacher be responsible for also teaching and managing the dog and manage,
Yes, two things.
it's
Because it's
way
a normally when a therapy dog team comes into the classroom, like I come in, I am not, I can speak to the children or do something, but I am mainly therapy dog handler and the teacher is another person. Will a teacher be, would it be possible for the teacher working in the school district to request a therapy dog to come in sometimes to the classroom or not?
So we do a couple of things in New York City. You could for our school, and it's not part of my comfort dog program,
Hmm.
but the schools that just wanted to have visits where the dogs come in for an hour once a week or so, they can reach out to therapy dog organizations that have teams that visit New York City. So we do have that as an option. For my program in particular, we do all of our work as small group instruction.
Hmm.
So if a teacher did want, and there's time also, right? Because they are the people that are doing this program, they are employed. They have full-time jobs to do alongside working with the dog. So it's not like they're available just to pop in for a visit because they have full schedules. But we
Exactly.
do find places to make that work sometimes. What we'll do is the dog has their own space within the school. That's something I was very big on. We're asking a lot of the dog to come into a school building. No matter how prepared they are, no matter how many therapy dog
Yeah.
tests or all we're doing, it's a lot. But it's not a lot if we do it right. And we prepare them and we advocate for them and we make sure that there's rules, procedures, structures in place. But on top of that, I find that if the dog has its own space, right, then we're taking out a lot of unpredictability that's going on in the school building. They don't have to keep going from space to space to space. Transitions are hard. Transitions are hard for me. They're hard for students. They also can become difficult on the dog. So I'm taking the transitions like off the table for them. So when the students are coming in, small group 10 is really the max that I'll work with because being able to work with the dog, manage the dog, make sure that the dog's okay. That's your partner in crime, and also managing the students and making sure everybody's where they need to be. I don't want it to become overwhelming for any party involved. But students do get invited in small groups to come and work depending on the school and what time they have. But most of them, I would say, do that at some capacity.
That's amazing. I'm sure that happens also a lot. I've noticed that as I take my dog to the school, and we don't do it a lot of it right now at this time, but weekly, once a week, there is a lot of like impromptu interaction. So I'm going with my dog to a classroom, but what happens in the hallway? There is some other children, right? Sometimes with the teacher who all of a sudden has a little group of two tiny kids, and it's just kind of like this first interaction, and oh, can we pet your dog? And conversation was mine with them. Oh, do you know how to pet a dog? And we talk about that super quick. It happens sometimes just a couple of minutes, and they have an opportunity to see if they can pet my dog, and they just like so happy.
Yeah.
And the teacher also loves this kind of opportunity. So a lot of little things like that happening in the hallways, not even scheduled anything, right? I'm sure that happens a lot in the schools with the dogs in your program.
So that actually you bring up one of my big things and my rules that I have. And I know it makes it hard. We teach all of the schools because the dog is there for the whole
Yeah.
entire year, only 3 days a week max. And they do have schedules with breaks and all of that in between. Dogs are very spatially sensitive to things. I think people are too. You don't realize how much you are. And hallways are tough, right? There's a lot going on, and there's narrow. And I just always think I personally don't like to be in a space where I don't have an out if I need to feel like I want to be able to move or create space or get out of a space. And dogs can't talk, right? They can't tell us that. So hallways for me are just a no in greetings. And I know that makes it difficult because you don't want to take away the value from the kids are excited to see the dog.
Right.
People are excited. And I do believe, and I always have a hard way saying this, that there is a great piece of the interaction that happens, but I always want to say, is there balance in that interaction in which the dog is equally enjoying the interaction as much as the child? And then you also, as the handler, are you able to manage it the way that you
Yeah, you
want?
have to be present and be able to
Yeah.
evaluate this situation.
So for our schools, they all have, and each school is different, like a universal hand signal, whether it's giving hearts or I love you signs or whatever it is that the kids are taught. If you see the handler in the hallway, you can express your love. The dog will walk by wagging its tail, like, that's their own version of saying hello. But I don't let my teams have greetings happen in the hallway just because I can't predict exactly what's going to happen. You
Yeah.
also want to make sure permission slips and does this child have permission from their parent to be able to interact with the dog? Could there potentially be an allergy? Could there be fear and aversion, or maybe they want to say hi but they don't know the dog yet, so you get a lot of like coming in, coming out, which can be confusing sometimes. So that's, for me in particular, with the amount that the dogs are in the school, I want to avoid that. So that way, when I do have the kids come in, there is that intentionality that I'm talking about, right? I'm teaching them on this is how you say hi to a dog. Again, allow the dogs go into the children's space or the adult, not the other way around, right? It's like I do a thing. If someone comes right into your space and shakes your hand, you're like, whoa,
I
hold on.
totally see it in the situation where the dog is in school for quite a few hours. It needs to be structured.
Yeah, trigger
Otherwise,
stacking is real, right? Stress and
yeah.
building your stress becomes
Mhm.
real. And if you say you are going to have to go up and have, I mean, in a school with 1,000 children, that could be 1,000 pets and hellos.
I
Um,
know. No,
and
that's
that over
too
time
much. Not
can take
good.
a toll on the dogs for sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of their stress or a lot of their uncomfortableness is silent sometimes. So that's why I want to be sure that I'm able to make sure both parties are okay. And I think that goes to maybe what you were speaking to earlier about schools taking on these programs or administrators. And I think there is a fear sometimes behind bringing a dog into a school, and understood. But that's where, when I came in to do this program, I do have various hats, right? I'm bringing my dog trainer hat, I'm bringing my teacher hat, I'm bringing my administrator, and I'm putting
Mhm.
all of these pieces together to say, how can I make this as safe as possible, right? How can I make sure that I'm really structuring things so I can never prevent all accidents in the world from happening? Nobody can, right? But how can I make it that I did everything that I can for the child and for the dog to make it safe? And I think the way that I've lined it up has made it that we have less risk, because there's never anything that's 100%. If I'm keeping the dog safe and I'm telling the dog, I got you, I'm advocating for you, I will not let you get stressed out. If I know you're stressed, I'm
Yeah.
going to remove you from this situation. And I have to give myself the ability to do that. That's why being in that one space, right? Being intentional on, I only walk up certain staircases, I only go out into the hallways if I absolutely need
Mm-hmm.
to. Things like that. If I can make it so that you're good, then the kids will be good. And there's that ethics piece also, which is huge for me. We have to make sure that they're trusting us to, I got you. So I have to have your back because you're doing a big job.
Yeah, and it's a little bit, it's totally different intensity for the dog to be all day long in school. There needs to be a totally different structure in place too. Yeah, I can only imagine. But so that works for the entire school district, for the New York City school district. All schools participating, or some people just don't want to, and they allowed not to be a part of it, or it's just everybody just got in and that was it.
Yeah, so the first step to be able to apply to the program is that you have to have an out of the classroom staff member, right? Somebody that has the capacity to do the work because as we
Mm-hmm.
were saying before, it's not a meet and greet petting mascot program, right? And that's why the comfort dog animal assisted intervention program is kind of how we say it because we want to make sure that everybody's understanding that is what we're doing. It is a big job.
Right.
So they need to have the time to do it. They need to own a certified therapy dog. And I mean, as you know, you can't just go and say, "Hey, I would like a therapy dog." Or people will
Yeah.
come to me and be like, "Oh, we want a dog." And I'm like, "I wish I was Oprah that I could be like, dog for you, dog for you, dog for everybody."
Okay.
I don't have them.
We remember
I
that.
do have a lot of dogs, but they're mine. So being able to find that right team is step one. Once I have enough teams to develop a cohort, because that's my step two, we have an onboarding training process for the handlers and the dogs that when we all add it all up together is about 75 hours. So I need to have a cohort that I can do this training for. They need to be able to have a space within the building to be able to work with the dog. It can't be like an office that's this big. Dogs in space, they need their space. They need a more open space. You need to have the ability to let them move around and work with the kids. The school has to, be on board with exactly what we're doing with the program. We're not bringing the dog to arrival and dismissal and to be in the school play. The dog is a working dog and it's there to do the job. So we have to have the administrators buy in from that. And once they have those pieces, then any of the schools can apply. It's just hard to get the therapy dog teams. Not everybody has a dog.
No, no. And it also requires some time and commitment to have them trained. And just because you're training doesn't mean you're going to end up with the certification. So it's not, right? It's not just something like a quick thing, it's a process. That's for sure. Do you have a lot of inquiries from other school districts, from other places who are just like, oh, how are you doing this? We would like to do it here too. Can you help us? How did you do it?
I have here and there. I've had people. We had Japanese TV come in. That's the name of the station. Come and interview us. I had someone from Australia come
Mm-hmm.
just to observe the program. I do have back to that Facebook group that we were talking about. I've had a couple of people, reach out to me. So there's definitely an interest in it. It's a growing field, and I think that schools are becoming more open to it. And I think just the world is becoming more aware and open to these animal therapies. So it's getting out there, and I'm always happy. The more people that I can help because I'm in it, and that's another piece too. I am the director of the program, but I am still doing the program myself, and that was something very important to me as I took on this job. I have 50 schools that are all, working with me, but I'm like, I want to do it too. Because when you're in it and you're doing it, that's when you see the things in real time and you can really coach somebody. It's easy sometimes to be out of it and then just tell everybody rules or, what you should be, what you shouldn't be doing, but experiencing myself. So, but I mean, I'd love to help all schools. I wish all schools had it.
That's just amazing. What I also would like to ask you, uh, and I'm sure you heard a lot from you doing it yourself, but you also hear from teachers, from other staff members from the school, counselors, and other experts. If you could share like one or two incredible success stories, something that happened, I don't know, changed the course of behavior or just trajectory for a child, anything like that, we would like to hear, because I think these stories are powerful, and some of us can witness this when we take our dogs to the classroom or in other circumstances. I mean, we can see changes in real time happening for children.
Yeah. It's always hard for me to say, what my biggest success, because they're all success stories, right? And you
Yeah.
see it in so many different aspects of doing this work. One of the biggest ones, and I'll give you this, that popped out when I just first started doing this work, is seeing in some of the autistic populations children that have never spoken before say words, right? That to me was just like, wow. And I just kept thinking, imagine being a parent and having your child never speak. And now all of a sudden they're saying dog, or they're saying sit or down. And we did see that. Again, that's why I keep going back to the dog training as a great way to get to these kids that so much of this happens. But we saw it in the dog training because they wanted to communicate with the dog. And it was a safe place, right? And they're just in this little bubble where it's the two of them, and then it just happens. And that to me was just right.
That
And
is
it
huge.
done
That
in
is
a lot of
huge.
places. It wasn't just once that it was happening. So in particular with that community, I don't know. It's just when you see a child just become regulated by working with the dog, it's not like a specific tangible thing that I can say, but just that whole shift in behavior and the calmness that comes over them. And like you see them speaking differently and just standing taller and raising their hand, and then you start seeing it happen in the classroom. And then their teachers are starting to say, like, wow, I'm seeing a difference. You know, they're so excited. Like they can't. Tuesdays is my day that I bring the dog in, and I have to be careful with my schedule because if I have a meeting or something, they let me have it. They're like, we were supposed to be with Chip, and they look forward to it.
Yeah.
Thing too, just having something to like look forward to and feel special about. After the pandemic, we had a lot of students that we were seeing in the like second or third grade that didn't necessarily even have their letter sounds, right? And now you're really behind the game at this point. And what does that struggle look like? So we started pulling those students specifically to work with the dogs in phonics. And they went from being the kids that were going to be pulled out of class because something's wrong or they're not good enough, right? That's the story kids tell in their head, to I get to be in the dog training program,
Yes.
right? And they know in the school, not everybody gets that, right? We pull them in. We're working on we're working on the same stuff that they would be working on anyway, but the dog's picking the cards, and we're teaching the dog to roll dice and target things, right? So that they're able to match sounds and letters and create words and working with them. And the kids think it's amazing. And now they're like, it was me. I got picked instead of the other way around, right? Just that piece right there. Secondarily, when we were looking at the data on the students that we worked on with the dog versus not, there was a huge difference in their letter recognition, sound recognition over that period of time. So it was working on that. But again, for me, it was just that the students had that moment that they got to be special and excited about it. Another space I see it really works is, I said before, transitions are really hard and we don't realize how hard they are. I've noticed more recently just in my own life where I'm like, oh, this is rough.
Right. I mean,
Yeah,
for
like you
us
don't
too.
realize like change is hard, and going from one space to another, or here I have this hat on, or over here I'm teaching yoga and now I'm a dog trainer, and now I'm a dog trainer and a teacher, and just even that, it's
Yeah.
taking multiple hats on up, and it does do something to you. So um a lot of students struggle just like coming in and going from home into school. It's a big shift for them and they struggle a lot. So that was something that I recognized also. So, in being able to strategically pick those students that were having a hard time in first period, right? And not even a big, huge program what I do, but like going down, picking them up, like, hey, I need your help in the morning to get Chip set up for the day, right? Go get the water for him. We have all of this stuff set up. Say hello to him. Start your day with Chip. And I'd be like, you have to warm him up and do some training with him
Yeah.
because the other kids are going to come. And they're like, oh, okay, he's got to work on he catches treats and he has a bunch of stuff he does, right? Warm up. And it's 5 minutes. And then we go back to class. That's a huge shift now, that like what your day looks like. And it's easing you into a really big transition that's happening. So just those small, tiny little things. Like I could go on for hours and tell you all the impact.
Yeah, but
And
it's
you'll just have like
amazing.
impact isn't about, 97% of kids that do this. I think there's a space for that and I think it's important. But you got to see it and you have to being in it and talking to the kids too. That's something when you were asking before, like how do we get people to know about this? Talk to the kids. They have a lot to say and can really get you to go, oh wow, this really
Totally
works.
agree with this. And we had a similar situation with the remedial math children who obviously they don't want to go to these groups because they know why they there. I'm weak, right? So that's why I go to this group. But then wait a minute, but the dog comes in when we are there. We are no longer thinking that we are doomed or victims of this. The thinking totally changes. The dog is coming, yeah, yeah, and then the learning changes from just learning to just some kind of like even like entertainment almost, and the kid is starting to look at whatever it is that they're struggling with math in a totally different way. And again, it's not enough sometimes, like you said, this is not taking away from the teachers and their expertise, but no matter what you do and how much expertise you have, if you bring the dog or another animal intentionally, the results might be totally different, just totally different. And so many kids struggle with math. If they struggle with math at very young age, you can only imagine what happens later. How are you
Yeah,
going to catch up, right? So these animals are absolutely amazing. And like you said, you can go on and on with all these success stories, so to speak, because there are true success stories. And even like supposedly nothing to do with learning or academics, but learning how you transition from one routine to another so you are even ready to learn. And what about all these levels of anxiety that kids today display? I mean, if you have high levels of anxiety and you're so young, how are you going to learn? It's
yeah,
not just like switch the switch and you can learn, right? All of a sudden from anxiety to being able to absorb learning. It's just very, very difficult. So I have to say, I mean, Kirsten, you've been doing something incredible. So this year is the 10th anniversary of piloting the program, pretty much,
oh,
right? Because this is 2016. Is it a
I should be
party happening?
celebrating. I didn't even realize. Ooh, look, I got so
No
excited.
problem. We got excited. Is the party going to happen or not?
I mean, I don't know what could happen. Maybe I can put something out and
You
that'll
gotta
get
stir something
some
up.
awareness. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, that's exciting. I didn't even realize that.
We should be celebrating this, right? It's absolutely amazing. Recently, I also had Dr. Dooley, who is a superintendent and who created his own therapy dog program, I think, in the original school where he was superintendent, and now he is doing it in the different school districts. It's absolutely amazing what can be done. It doesn't even matter what's happening in the educational system and who is speaking and who is saying what we should be doing. If we can get teachers and school district leaders on the same page, and we know there are difficulties, but they can be overcome, as we can obviously tell. And based on your story, and the program has been functioning for the whole decade, we can get these people on board, then we don't have to listen all these
Yeah.
other, right?
I think it's, my boss, Dr. Beverly Logan, always says this, like, it doesn't matter who's here and who's in charge. Keep the main thing, right? The
Yeah.
main thing is the children. And this is not the only thing, right? This is a beautiful thing and it works. But I think it's just the philosophy behind this is whether you have a dog or not can be transferred over to, other schools in different spaces. The dog being there enhances what we have, right? But regulation of the kids, having them in a place where they can think and learn and feel safe, it is where learning happens. And if you try and do the learning when you don't have that foundation, trust, respect, I got you, right? And sometimes it's hard to get there. And I've been in education for 18 years now. It's not always easy. It's not always there's times where I've brought Chip into a space and I've done the work and I'm like, okay, today's not the day. Let's try this a different way. right? Because the relationship's not there yet. That's
Yeah,
another thing. I never bring a kid, I don't have a dysregulated child and say, here, let me bring a dog into a space, right? I intentionally create the relationship beforehand so that I can help with the deregulate and regulating them afterwards. But either way, it's these same ideas is what we in an educational space need to think about, and then secondarily the academics.
totally, totally
That's
right.
it. No dog. Whoever is in charge, whoever, wherever we are, if we can find spaces to really give teachers and anybody who's working with children the awareness and understanding, because I don't think it's a lack of want. I think it's not having a full understanding of all the pieces, because we spend a lot of time teaching them other things. Where how do you see the child? Look at the child that you have in front of you, and what's driving the behavior, academic, behavioral, whatever it may be, and how do I dig deep? And not everybody has that in their toolbox. And then there's 26, 30, 32 children. The expectation is a lot, and we place a lot on teachers, education and support, and having conversations like this and the right people hearing them.
And I think this calls for a larger, some kind of idea as far as how to make this, more accessible to places, to other programs who teach future teachers. I think somehow there needs to be a shift. Whether we advocate for this, there are, of course, conferences for teachers, but there are perhaps some of these universities programs would be willing to welcome someone teaching a mini course or whatever, right?
Sign
About
me
this
up.
topic, right? Maybe we can create something together, something to think about, because
Absolutely.
we have to move the needle, right? We're doing incredible things where we are. I mean, you're doing something absolutely incredible, so we're doing this. I'm trying to do also within my scope, but in order to move the needle, needs to be like another step. There's always, right, to get this going. And it's not about that's the only way, but it's just offering already something and ideas and sort of like proof or evidence from something that we've been already doing. I mean, I've been experimenting, including my dog, for 6 years and doing the work together for 8 years. You've been doing this program for such a long time and have all of this amazing data and on autistic children and not only. So something needs to be done. And I think that we have to be the ones who will have to.
Uh, Listen, I'm down. Me, I am in. I'm always here for advocating for this work, for speaking about this work. And like you said, I think the more people that knew and understood that it's bigger than just a visit and an interaction, right? It is these students being able to learn so much about themselves through the dog, as long as there's intentionality. Like, that's our role, right? The dog does its own thing. The dog doesn't need me. I keep the dog safe. They make the magic happen. But the intentionality of finding the right thing to say or the right connection to make, bridging that gap
Mhm.
through the dog, and having these kids really learn something that I think will be meaning for them for all aspects of their life.
Yeah, and it's
So
the
let's do
teacher.
it. Who are we calling? Where are we going?
Yeah, and the teachers, future teachers, people who are learning to be teachers, they need to have that seed planted in. Otherwise, I mean, we therapy handlers, we already know how that works. We've seen it work, right? That's not the ones we need to really sort of desperately reach out to, but more to others who need to. And I tell my students, listen, guys, I mean, you learn all this stuff from all these books, but I'm going to tell you, when you start teaching, there will be situations where you won't be able to pull anything out of these textbooks you had in college and you passed the courses and you had A's and all that stuff. But you will have children and situations you will not know what to do. And it's like, what are you going to do then? And I'm not scaring you here. I'm just, showing you one of the practices that can help you in this kind of situation, difficult situation. So that's really what I'm doing here. Well, then, that's, I think that this practice really made me a better teacher educator, because without it, I wouldn't be saying any of this, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. 100%. And that's what I say to my teachers and the people that work with me. I go back to like trust, right? If your dog trusts
Mm-hmm.
you and you find a place that the kids trust you, kids have a lot to say, right? They
My
really
gosh, they
they
can't be fooled.
don't know how to articulate it sometimes, or how to say it, or how to be okay with like blah, just like spitting it out and getting it out and saying, saying the thing. A lot of the times they know how we can help them. They don't even know how to articulate it. So again, like with or without a dog, but having children that trust you as an adult because they don't always have that in all aspects of their life, you know, do that first. The math grades, the literacy grade, all of that stuff, that'll come if you just build that foundation,
Yeah,
first.
yeah, totally. They just so smart children because they just I mean it's just incredible. I often say it when we talk with my child, when my child says to me, "Mom, come on, we know we can't be fooled." They really do. We underestimate that, underestimate them, I think, sometimes too. And also, on another note of this conversation, which is fabulous, is that we, educational system, we are not inviting also sometimes children's voices into this. They should have the voice in as far as making decisions for these practices, right? That is, it's about them. They should be able to also have a part of in creating, in designing education that works for them. So that's another aspect of that. And we can talk about it again for a long time. So the topic to be continued.
Of course.
Air.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love it.
But I really appreciate this wonderful episode and so much knowledge that you shared with us about the program itself and about all these intricacies, all these nuances of why this works, right? Why therapy animals and children creates this incredible collaboration with incredible results for both parties, so to speak, children and animals, and of course adults who are working in school. It also has effect on them. And I also wanted to ask you right at the end, if someone would like to find out more about the program, or follow you or the school district or the program on social media, where would they go?
Sure. So you can email me at kkinsella@schools.nyc.gov. I also have an Instagram, not the school program. I do a lot of children's groups, dog training, preparing for animal assisted interventions. I have a nonprofit that does service dog work that I post a lot of information on there that also translates over to doing the kids, and that's at Chuck's Pups Inc. on Instagram. So
That's
if you want to
awesome.
watch some of the stuff, you can check it out there. If you want to email me specifically
Yeah.
schools program related, that kkinsella@schools.nyc.gov.
That's great. We have to follow you on Instagram, follow your activity. It's absolutely amazing. And I would like to invite our wonderful audience to please, follow the show and let us know what you think about the episode. Share it with others who you think would be interested in this. I also, what else I'm going to say? I'll see you on social media. Let us know what you think about it. And I think it's a very important conversation, and we need to make it happen. We have to create a little bit better education for children. I think that this is one of those practices that can really move the needle for kids in schools. It's not all about dogs. There's other therapy animals, of course, but this can be incredibly working for children if it is done properly. And we had here an incredible expert, Kirsten. So let us know what you think about it. Follow the show and see you on social media. And thank you so much, Kirsten. It was absolutely fabulous to talk to you. You're welcome.
Okay,
Bye-bye,
bye-bye.
everyone. Bye-bye. This is Get Inspired with Dr. Barb.